collaboration between people. That's really what it comes, and it becomes...
We love that word collaboration. So I find sometimes it's difficult to kind of get my head around the macro trends that are out there, the big picture, before we can even begin to talk about these issues. Josh, what do you think are some of those big trends we need to be thinking about?
You know, I think if we really want to find a single sort of unifying trend that from which all others derive, I think it's data and information. I think we're really sitting in an enterprise, an extended collaborative enterprise that has enormous quantities of new data coming into the enterprise, new ways to work with that data, and new sources of data. And we want to be both in taking that in and understanding how it works and how to make better use of it, and also using that to influence those very sources, whether, again, that's a machine, a person, a social media environment, whatever it is. We've got this imperative to look at the enterprise as an information-rich and information-driven enterprise in ways that it never was before.
So you think that big data is an actual thing then? Because, you know, we do have a tendency to knock around cliches and buzzwords. Everyone's talking about big data.
I talk about big analysis, and that's sort of my kind of contrarian view.
But is there actually more information out there
than
there ever
because big
was?
analysis really doesn't require petabytes of data to make an intelligent statement about something. It just requires, and more important than quantities, it's really the quality of the analysis. So we can, you know, I've seen in numerous environments where you start thinking in unique ways about relatively small amounts of data. It's that unique analysis that changes something, and it doesn't, again, you don't need petabytes. But there's certainly in every enterprise I talk to, every business, there is this thing happening where all of a sudden I've got more data than I ever thought before. Accumulating it just for the sake of having it, bad idea, but looking at it intelligently to say, what can we do?
But Josh, isn't it not only that the quantity from a sort of narrow perspective? I'm not collecting more of what I used to collect. I'm collecting a greater variety.
Stuff that
I
never saw before.
Wider aspect, right?
Again, machines.
Yes.
Sense, and I want to point out that a lot of again what's called IoT is really about the taking industrial data and sensor data into the enterprise and mixing it with existing enterprise data. If you're, depending on your industry, if you're a refiner, you've been doing IoT forever. If you're in transportation, you've got a lot of data already. It's what do you do with it to take operational and put it into the IT world and blend it?
That must be a challenge that Mark faces. Isn't it?
I actually think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that companies face or industry faces today. There is so much data, so much rich data, and it's coming from so many different directions. The question is, what data do you really need? And that really depends on the business strategy and what are the outcomes you're trying to drive, and what are you searching to accomplish versus just gathering a bunch of data and starting to parse data and interrogating data. And I'm in total agreement with Josh. It's the analysis, understanding what you need to bring in so you can analyze it, so you can then derive the proper outcomes and the metrics you're trying to achieve.
But even then, let's say you've made that determination, you still have a huge amount of data to deal with.
Absolutely.
That you consider to be relevant.
Absolutely.
And so how do you organize that data? How do you make sense of it? How do you make use of it? Big challenge.
It's interesting because the more things change, the more they stay the same. In reality, we have this wonderful term called a schema, right? It's about organizing your data. I mean, it just gets onto a bigger and bigger scale. Yes, you have social media coming in, you may have IoT coming in, there may be other forms of data, but you have to organize that data. But again, it gets back to what is the data you really want to capture to begin with. You organize the data, you bring it in. There's tremendous tools for parsing and utilizing analytics as well, analytical tools. And we can get into the theory of big data and data scientists, and we can make this much bigger than what it really is.
Because if it weren't big enough already.
Yeah, in reality, it's basic principles that we've known for years that we just need to continue to expound on.
Kind of makes me wonder whether your customers come running to you in a panic saying, what do I do with all this data? How do you, help me organize it? And do you kind of get that sort of data paralysis problem that companies face?
I mean, the first thing we always face is we require data from multiple data sources. And the first question is, this data is dirty. Well, you're running a business right now on that data. Making it more visible to the rest of the organization isn't going to make that data worse. It's not going to make your decisions worse, but it's going to be pointing a spotlight into where that data needs to improve, which kind of goes back to Mark's point. Well, I am of the opinion that there is exploration around data, and it's not necessarily that you pre-know the schema and all of this sort of stuff that you might find value out of data. But nevertheless, for most business, as opposed to the sort of innovation spectrum, for most business, you have a fairly clear outcome of what it is that you're looking for. What has been the problem in most enterprises up to now, they've not had a consistent way in which to bring that all up into a single location and make it visible across the network.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's been the barrier.
Well, and that was one of the, I would say, one of the breakthroughs I think I found with rapid response, is it gave us the tools and it gave us an ability to start, if you will, dissecting our data, parsing our data, being able to bring in our data from sales or from materials or from whatever other systems there may be. But it gave us an ability or a platform to bring in our data in a manner we could use it.
It's interesting, though, Mark, how the revelations that come from the use of this technology kind of almost changes your mission in a way. Like, I understand you guys started out thinking, well, what we need is factory optimization.
Correct.
And then you moved from that. Tell me about how you kind of went from that into more of like a feeling like, no, what we really need is end-to-end visibility. Wasn't that what happened with you guys?
Absolutely. When we first began down our journey, down our process, we thought we wanted optimization. And clearly, I mean, I heard our people ask us, just give us the easy button, give us the button to push, right? And we'll know what we're going to manufacture, where we're going to manufacture across all of our manufacturing footprint. And then you start realizing, as we went through this process, how complex our manufacturing environment really is to manufacture our products, the amount of materials and all of the other drivers that we have to input. And we came to the determination, optimization didn't really fit us. We needed simulation. We needed a tool that could help us simulate our business, come up with multiple scenarios, model our business, and be able to work together as an integrative, cohesive unit. We are big into collaboration, bringing all of our areas together and collaborating to determine what we're going to manufacture, when we're going to manufacture, and then also manage our inventory and our supply.
Yeah, you need the world of what if.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody needs to know
Absolutely.
what can happen without having to risk it first and find out too late that it was the wrong route to take.
Absolutely, and especially in an environment such as ours, where our SPS literally can change week to week to week to week. And we need the tools to help us plan and replan and restage and look at change analysis and model and scenarios and bring all of the bright minds in our company together to make the right decision.
Yeah. You must find that, Josh. I mean, your own clients must be involved in the change of mission as they realize, as they get more into this. It's like, well, that's not really what we wanted. What we need is this instead. Or do you
Well, in fact, I tend to say let's start with really thinking about what needs to change in the business. What's happening? Whether it's my customers change, my customers' buying habits have changed, my suppliers' habits have changed, the market has changed. There's a new competitor. There's a new market, and really start there as opposed to start with, again, this accumulation of data. The nice thing about having the ability to simulate is that you can really kind of explore the possibilities of what happens when our business changes without taking the risk. That's essential, because you're going to have to, if you don't innovate internally in order to stay up to date with the innovation outside, you will. Right. Yeah, you'll go on to that great graveyard of companies in the sky.
Exactly, which I find really interesting, Josh, is that while we're talking about it from our perspective of our manufacturing lines and what our manufacturing, our production footprint looks like, and what we're going to manufacture, the reality of it is we're addressing market demands, which are customer demands. And so we're not only helping ourselves, if you will, as a manufacturing concern, we're also helping our customers. We actually partner with our customers to determine what to build, when we need to build it, so they can have it, because our customers are depending on our products to deliver their goods. And many times our customers are building new plants and need our products to help them move those goods. So the timing is very, very critical to both.
And
both
I would say the other mega trend, it's about people. And
Yes.
it's about people at both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
It's about that consumer, whoever that is, and that may be a business, not a end consumer in a retail organization, but that consumer mentality is really shifting on the outside and on the inside.
Yes.
We have to change
Yes.
who we are as companies
and
to be effectively meet those changes.
And you know, the sharp end of that stick is for somebody like Trinity, which is, as it were, quite at the end of the supply chain. You know, you guys make big, heavy things that sometimes needed in large quantities, and other times are needed in smaller quantities. And you've got this big shift going up and down. But how do you bring the people in who actually can deal with that level of churn in the marketplace, who then can analyze that end to end and understand it?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Getting back to Josh's point, it does start with the people.
Yes.
So when you're looking for putting in a new enterprise system of whatever it may be, you're impacting the culture of your company. And it is very imperative you have to bring those people along. And you know, we talk about change management many times. And a lot of times it's as I'm going to call it as overused a statement as maybe big data is as well. But change management is very important. Again, change management is very granular. It gets to the heart and soul of an individual. You can change policies and procedures all day long, but at the end of the day, it's the people that drive that execution. So we worked very, very diligently through our process of bringing our people along, integrating our teams. Yes, we brought in some new talent as well, but the bottom line of it is our people know our business, they understand our products. We had to give them the tools and the process for them to learn a new way to execute.
Good.
And we brought them along that process, and change management was very critical to that.
Yeah, it seems like interoperability becomes the issue here, both in a technological sense and in a people sense. I mean, do you find that? How do you address the whole interoperability? I can't even say the word, let alone attack it. How do you address that, Trevor,
Well,
in your world?
it's interoperability between systems, and of course, it's collaboration between people. That's really what it comes, and it's becomes.
We love that word collaboration, though. It sounds so easy, but everyone's in
it's-
their own little silos, and we talk
Yes.
about what the goals that you have in an organization. It's not like everyone has the same goal. They're all incentivized in different ways
Yes,
and all different departments.
exactly. But
So-
you know, some of the things I think Mark will have seen with some of the what if capabilities, it's not only my metric that becomes visible to me, it's the impact on the rest of the organization. And when people have that visibility, there are a few people who probably don't want to behave in a corporate responsible manner. But for most people, the problem has been they're measured on one metric and they don't have any ability to understand the impact of what they're doing on the rest of the organization. So what are they going to do? Of course, they're going to maximize their metric. But most people, if you give them a rational ability to be interoperable or collaborative or whatever term we want to use to understand what their network effect is going to be of their decision, they will act in a responsible manner. If nothing else, there's a policing mechanism to it in that everybody else knows that they have made that decision. But in most cases, people will act in the goodwill of the organization, provided they have the answers that will allow them to understand.
And this is, you know, to me, this is behavioral science at its
Yes.
best. It's really about empowerment. The right data, the right information empowers the individual to be effective. Most people would rather be empowered than disempowered. Most people would really do come to work to try to be effective. I mean,
Yes.
that study after study shows that they may leave at the end of the day completely frustrated because they're missing the tools and the abilities. But this is why I like, you know, if used well, these data opportunities, these collaborative interoperable opportunities become things where the individual, the army of one, really can stand up and
Yeah,
make a
I think
difference.
maybe that individual who isn't on board with the rest of the organization, maybe there's only two reasons why. One is fear, and the other is misunderstanding of the corporate goals. And if you can attack both of those, if you can make that person feel that, no, your job isn't necessarily threatened, you're still part of the organization, but we need you on board with the rest of us, is number one. Number two, here are the marching orders, here's what we need to do as a company, as opposed to what your individual little, fiefdom has to do. So,
But what I do find fascinating is this changing of the guard. Josh earlier was bringing up Justin Trudeau, a young, well, he's actually not much younger than Stephen Harper was when Stephen Harper got in, but nevertheless his persona appears to be much younger. And what I'm getting at is as these Gen X come into the workforce, how are they actually going to change it? Because they do approach things differently. Looking around the table, We mostly boomers.
Yeah, I don't think
and-
we're speaking for Gen X, are we?
Exactly. So then, the question is there going to be a generational change that will make this more natural? Whereas we've been used to operating in a different manner and different incentives.
I sure hope so. I mean, we have a generation that is obviously more internet savvy, more social network savvy, and you would think they would be able to play better with this type of software and technology and approach.
If the software plays better with them.
Them.
And I think
Ah,
that's
that's
the
the-
trick.
yes.
The trick, and I watch from my young children how their expectations of usability are. I mean, we couldn't have conceived it when we were
No,
coming up through it.
absolutely not.
So and that's where we with the sort of the gray hair and the concept of adult supervision need to transition the enterprise software world to this new usability
Yes.
paradigm.
Which I think brings it all the way back to your original point about data, because the fundamental thing that I see the younger people wanting to do is essentially a Google experience. They don't want to have a structured way in which they're going to have to search and find information. They need to have a much more organic way in which they're going to do iterative searches to get
My
to the
kids
answer.
use Siri exclusively, by the way.
Yes.
It's not even a keyboard
Yeah,
anymore. It's-
exactly.
let's talk
It's
to-
a
yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is while this particular generation is much more adaptable to the technology, and they do pick it up, they still have to understand the business process.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we are building organizations and we're implementing tools around a business process. And the good news is they pick up the actual technology set much quicker. And I will say what's really intriguing about this generation is they're very open to change. So they're open to new ways of doing business and new processes. So what I find them a lot of times being on the vanguard, if you will, of any of the new implementations.
Yes.
Because they're very open to it. But they also, which is very, I'm going to say, also find very enlightening, is that they are respectful of those who've been there longer, who have experience, and they're able to bring that experience into a new business process. That becomes very powerful.
Yes, so it is about leveraging tools, but also knowledge and experience, right?
Absolutely.
Bringing those two
Can't
things.
go away. This is we're not talking about cool little, consumer apps on an iPhone. We're talking
Right.
about running major corporations and complex. It's, and I always say this, it can't always be like Amazon one click. It's
No.
just not going to be that way.
No.
And I remind people, literally, no, you can't have that. You can have an immersive, intuitive experience, but it might take more than one click to get what you want.
So we're being very idealistic here about the things that should happen in the world. How far are we? Where is process change right now? I mean, in terms of your client base, how far along do you think companies are toward achieving some of these goals we've been talking about?
Well, an enlightening session I had in May with one pharmaceutical company, this senior VP of supply chain turned to his team and said to them, in 2 to 3 years' time, we're no longer going to have demand planners and inventory planners and capacity planners and material managers. We're going to have network planners. So immediately it's a horizontal process. It is a change in way you operate. Now, not everybody's going to get there at one time. It's going to be a phased approach to that change. But these people must certainly have a vision which is much further along. There are a number of other companies that the first question they ask when we talk to them about the capability to collaborate along functions, well, we don't work like that. This person's not allowed to see that metric. Okay, we can shut it down. We can make the people
We can replicate a bad process.
we can replicate a bad process if they wish to. We can force the, silos into the software, but that's not where we think the future is.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought because transparency of metrics is really critical.
Yes.
Because once we're transparent with our metrics across all the organization, people start understanding where their impacts, how they impact other groups and
Yes.
other teams. It's actually very beneficial whenever we've made transparency key.
Though it does bring that sister concept, accountability. And people, I think that's when I look at older generational mindsets, I look at that problem of accountability and transparency. That twinning is a
Yes.
little complicated. And new generation, younger people coming, they see transparency as such a given
Right.
that it's almost not,
That's
not
true.
an issue. Yeah, right. That's what I thought.
But Josh, I think Mark's point about the what if is a really important point. There's a difference between authorizing an action versus allowing exploration to occur across a multiple series of options and then proposing that to the person who's accountable or responsible for that metric to the organization. And I think that's the big change that we are seeing, is that people have that ability to do the testing and rapid testing before action.
And the speed. So
Yes.
getting back to the rapid,
Yes.
and the speed and the accuracy of being able to.
Great discussion, guys. Thanks for getting together.
It was fun.
It's a
I enjoyed
pleasure.
it. Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thanks
much.
a lot.